I am Brad Keelor. She is Jackie Bronner. Coming up next on Director's Cut, find out how she thought she was an introvert and really she's not. And she's an extrovert engineer, I guess, is the moral of that story. And then hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. Every single week, except during summer and 1 week at the holidays, I sit down with a different GI member who has stories to tell. Some of them are personal, some are professional, but all of them are fun. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this interview today, run, walk, I guess type on over to geoinstitute.org, and there you will find out a great many things about our august institute, including that we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And if you like what you see today, you always do, dear viewers, click like, subscribe, and get notifications. And we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. With all that out of the way, we welcome in our guest from the opposite coast of America, where she is a senior geotechnical engineer for the city of Seattle and the brand new president of the GI Seattle chapter. It is Jackie Bronner. Jackie, welcome and thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro.
It's the least I can do. We have 10 questions for you to be extroverted with, the same way that we do every week, and 2 of them are the same that we ask everybody. We must start with one of those. Describe your job in 45 seconds.
So I am a senior geotech engineer at the city of Seattle, and specifically with SDCI, so the Department of Constructions and Inspections. So mostly we're one of the few cities that has our own geotechnical review team for a city entity. So I spend a lot of my time reviewing projects, reviewing geotech reports and analyses, taking questions from the general public about concerns with landslides, liquefaction areas, and also just kind of running through things, trying to keep our codes updated to the highest standard that we have as things change in our industry, and mostly just, focusing on safety and making sure we've got some great new developments happening in the city.
So you've got a unique role in that for a lot of engineers, yes, they've all been to hearings, they've all had to maybe engage with the public a little bit. You actually have to do it as part of your job. What do you think you can go with the most rewarding or the most challenging thing about engaging with the public?
Yeah, actually, so we are on call, our group. One of us is on call every day. So you get your day assigned where basically you've got your little headset and the help chat desk and things are just coming in all day. So it's a little stressful. The noise that it makes is kind of like the squeaky toy for my dog's toys. So when I work from home, he's going crazy the whole day whenever I'm on call. But I think it's just really nice to walk people through those processes, and you have someone who really doesn't know what they're doing at all, maybe doesn't have a big source of funding. It's first time renovation, they didn't know that they were on this landslide prone area, and just kind of helping them through all these steps. The city of Seattle is really great with kind of having this online help desk and an in-person version. And then I really like helping out at our home fairs. So twice a year, we're there on the weekends, and people kind of just line up and ask all the reviewers questions, and they'll bring in their handprint or their printed out plan sets. They've got all this documentation and they just throw it on the table and they're like, walk me through this whole thing. So it's definitely, sometimes they come at you with some hot questions, and you're like, I need to drink a little bit more caffeine first, but I'll be ready in a second.
That is not where I thought that was going to go. I thought you were going to talk about passing out little fridge magnets and stuff, but you're getting tough questions at that
no,
time.
they're coming in, and sometimes they're coming in hot and angry because they've gotten their correction letters and they don't know why.
Wow.
And our job is as much as we can to make sure that they're leaving with a happier attitude than they came in with, and hopefully answers to their questions.
And it is, of course, the Pacific Northwest is an exciting geotechnical area in this country and a very diverse one. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the interview. For now, we have to get to some of the fun questions. They are the bread and butter of Director's Cut. We start you off with this, Jackie. What's the first thing you remember buying with your own money?
So I immediately went back to the Scholastic book fairs of yore, because we were big. We didn't really get a lot of allowances, but it was like collecting the aluminum cans and filling it up. And then once a year, you got to really go ham at a Scholastic book fair, getting the newest Babysitters Clubs, Harry Potter books, weird little frogs and stuff. I don't know why they were selling things that also weren't books at these book fairs, but a lot of nonsense. So
Impulse buys.
Yeah, impulse buys.
For 9-year-olds.
Not that everything else you were buying wasn't an impulse buy, but I think I was like, oh, where was I dropping money? It was definitely the Scholastic Book Fair.
Let's talk Babysitters Club. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that series, but it can be any of those series, because I think for anybody of a certain age, we all had our equivalent of that. You get into it with like book 32 of the series, and then you start going back and buying the prior ones. Did you get all the Babysitters Club books?
I think so. Luckily, I was the youngest of three girls in the family. So I think between the three of us, we had it all down. We had all the Princess Diaries, all the Babysitters Clubs, all the Nancy Drews, Artemis Fowl. So I was always lucky enough. I think my main one that was like my go-to that was maybe a little too young for them to have gotten it through was the Series of Unfortunate Events books. So I think that was my consistent, had to get the new one as it was coming out. But luckily, I just stole all of their stuff.
A big part of these was the display of them on the shelf. Were you hardcore? Did they need to be chronological and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah, they definitely did. There was probably a lot of signs about certain things that my parents should have seen early, but it was really great because my dad is a general contractor, so every project that would go on that needed to go on at our house was always like whenever he had breaks from jobs and stuff. So I always joke that like nothing was ever fully finished on that house until they were getting ready to sell it. But I like wanted bookshelves, and my sister and I were like, we need bookshelves, we need bookshelves, we need bookshelves. And he was like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. And it was like one day we came home and he had lined all of our walls.
Oh, wow.
With like built-in bookcases, which then became a hazard for sleeping because the beds would come up and you'd give yourself a little bit of a knock and go back to bed. But he did deliver. He promised us bookshelves, and then there was no room for any other posters and stuff because it was all bookshelves and everything was organized.
Oh, I like that a lot. So the third question is always the researcher practice question. You are going to talk about, I believe you said it was your first or one of the first projects you worked on as a consulting engineer that you still get to see all the time. And the address you gave us was 222 Dexter. Tell us the story, Jackie.
Yeah. So when I first got started, I worked for a company, Geo-Engineers, right out of grad school, and worked mostly in their development group. So 222 Dexter is actually the first one that I got as a project manager, where I got to take it from getting the proposal ready all the way through the design, the shoring system designs. There was some funky shoring systems that we had to get through just because lack of space in Seattle and lack of rights to easements. So taking it through the design, working through the permitting process, and then managing it through construction all the way down and then back up again. So it was fun, and I always kind of loved working in the development group at Geo, because it's just nice to go around and point out different buildings in the skyline that even though mostly all of the stuff I worked on, no one sees because it's underground, but I still take credit for the actual high-rise towers themselves, that's my building as we drive by. And I always really like to drive around with my friends who aren't in civil engineering and be like, oh yeah, like I did this building or I did this. Or we're like driving in Eastern Washington. I was like, oh, well, I did a bunch of drilling on this dam. And one of my friends is a nurse and she's like, I have no idea what your actual job is. It's all over the place.
But it never happens the other way where you're driving around and she sees a former patient and tells you that like she helped rehabilitate
some HIPAA violations
them.
In there.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Now, I have to so growing up with a general contractor as a parent, you probably had a little bit of a different view, I guess, of project management than you would if you hadn't seen that. Do you feel like that impacted the way that you approached these projects when you went out and started working as an engineer?
Yeah, I definitely think it did. I think a little bit more empathy for the contractors themselves and the stresses that they're dealing with construction, and also just being a lot more comfortable on a construction site, because I feel like our house was often a construction site, or when my dad was in charge of taking me to preschool, I didn't always make it to preschool. Sometimes I was going to the sites where he was going to because that's how the schedule was going. So definitely feeling comfortable, feeling like it's easy to communicate with folks. I know sometimes people fresh out of college are a little bit shyer, or we think that we know more than we actually do. And you just got to listen to those contractors because they've been working in these cities way longer than we have when we're brand new. And they've got a lot of insight that it's important to talk to and make sure everything is actually constructible.
I like that, and we're building up to the introvert extrovert question here, if you noticed, and so we have another one to get to before we go that route, though.
Okay.
One that I've never asked anybody, had to put it in here for you. I don't know why you had to get this one, but it's the luck of the draw. It's director's cut. It's all magic, right? Looking at my phone the other day, a bunch of apps on here that Apple conveniently offloaded for me because I hadn't used them in a long time. And so I thought, Jackie, what apps on your phone do you never use but also never delete?
So I've still got my Facebook Messenger app and Facebook that apparently I'm just can't fully cut the ties to. And then also, though I did use it this last weekend, I got my MTA Metro North app still because I grew up in New York State, and I use it maybe once every other year for my train schedules, but I just can't seem to delete it whenever I'm in Seattle. Just, I guess, missing the better public transportation system, but it was very helpful. I went back to New York last weekend with a friend to go see Beyonce and go see some shows, and I was like, oh, don't worry, I already got this bad boy. I got our tickets lined up.
And you feel kind of vindicated that one time that you use it and it's easy.
And I was like, getting off the air tram at JFK, and I was like, oh, I got to re-download this app. And then I was like, I already have it still.
Yeah, you don't want to go the other way. My daughter mocks me for not having the Chick-fil-A app, and it happens every time.
There's too many apps now, though. It's hard to keep
There
up.
are, and you don't need it, really.
It's true.
We teased this at the beginning. We mentioned it once already. You're going to take us there. You're going to tell us how you're not actually an introvert. Here's the question, Jackie. What's a personality trait you thought you had as a kid that you have either changed, disproven, or something else as an adult?
Well, so I I still call myself an introvert, but I've been told I'm wrong. And I definitely thought I was like this quiet, shy kid growing up, loved reading, loved to like quiet time, introvert time. And I still like thought I had that throughout college, throughout my early career. And then I took some time off work and I had a coworker tell me, and she's like, do you know you're not an introvert at all? And I was like, how dare you slander me like that, Michaela? And she's like, so she kind of threw it in my face of like how social I am and liking to be involved. We joked about being like personality hires who are actually good at their jobs, of getting our maybe a little bit shyer coworkers more comfortable and out and about. So yeah, apparently to an outside perspective, I'm an extrovert, and I've never been more offended because I still like to think of myself as my quiet little nerdy engineer self.
Have you done any of those, whether I think one is called personality index, there's Myers-Briggs. Have you done any of these, and did they correlate with what you thought they should have come up?
I can't remember the last time I did a Myers-Briggs, but maybe I'm going to do this when I finish up, just to fully get maybe either vindication for myself or proof for her. I've known an old company, we were really into the Enneagram, and that one, I know I was a 3, which made sense for me at the time. So now I'll have to redo everything and see if I can get some data to support things.
We mentioned at the top of the show that you are the brand new president of the Seattle chapter, so congratulations, first of all. I guess is the first thing. You guys just had your annual seminar about 10 days ago. We ask everybody when they come on the show kind of their ASCE story, their nostalgia trip. So Jackie, how did you first get involved in ASCE and GI?
I definitely probably started getting involved a little bit in undergrad with the student organizations and clubs, and then throughout grad school, got the opportunity to present at Geo-Congress, which was really a great opportunity. But actually, I kind of got out of it when I first came to industry and got back in when I switched from consulting into a public job, because they told me I could actually only work 40 hours a week. And I was like, well, what am I going to do for the rest of this time? And a different coworker was...
Give it to ASCE.
I guess so. I was like, this can't be right. I'm done and I don't know what to do. So I had another coworker who was like, oh yeah, we need more help. So got involved that way. And then, yeah, excited to be this year's or next year's, we start ours in like May, so it's a little awkward, president for next year. And we've just finished up our spring seminar, so taking a little break for a little bit and then be back with some more fun dinner meetings and seminars and lots of great new stuff to learn for the Seattle section.
Woo, woo. Well, we're happy to have you. For everybody out there, I guess this is where we do our pitch to get involved with your local group. Yeah. We have over 60 chapters across the U.S. right now. Odds are pretty good if you live somewhere in the United States, there is a Geo-Institute chapter near you. If there's not, there's probably still an ASCE section or branch with a geotechnical group as part of it. Lots of ways to get involved. So whether you have to work only 40 hours a week or whether you're currently working 100, it doesn't matter. We would love to have you involved in some way. I believe the hot new phrase is micro volunteering. Mm-hmm. And we've got those opportunities as well as the classic macro volunteering ones as well. I wrote these questions in the kitchen the other day. And so that's how this next one got in here. Jackie, what kitchen appliance could you not live without?
I decided that I was going to go with my electric tea kettle because I need to be caffeinated and surrounded by tea at all times, even though I'm Seattle, not a big coffee gal. And so I fill it up, hit it, take my dog for a walk and I'm ready to make some
Oh,
tea as
wow.
soon as I get going in the morning.
Very nice. So what is your tea of choice?
Um, right now we've got a green tea constant comet going, but I'd say I'm usually just a straight like English breakfast, Irish breakfast kind of gal.
And
Uh,
it's got to be caffeinated. Is there enough caffeine in tea to move the needle?
I think for me there is. I do eventually have to switch to more herbals and mints going so I don't just start shaking throughout the day. So maybe because I haven't let myself go down the devil's bean juice hole, I get to stay just on my tea caffeine kicks.
It is delicious though. But I did like that's a very creative answer, I feel like. It wasn't what I expected. So that's again the magic of director's cut. Now, you mentioned you're from back east. You went to undergrad about as far within New York State as you could have possibly gone. And spoiler alert for everybody, it was in Buffalo at the University of Buffalo. The first thing I thought when I saw that on your LinkedIn page is it's really cold there and it snows a lot. But I know that many people have gone to University of Buffalo and graduated from there, so you must be able to survive. What was your favorite thing about undergrad in Buffalo?
I mean, you got some great wings. I've been spoiled forever. You can't go back from that. With some great sports teams where you get really cheap, or at the time you got really cheap tickets to go see Sabres games, to go see Bills games. Bills games are probably a little bit harder now since they've got Josh Allen going for them. But yeah, just a great small little city. It's where I got my love of hockey. Was hanging out at Sabres games with our $20 seats on the very top row, dancing with Sabretooth. And also, it was just a really great school. I feel like they really put students first and kind of getting you towards practical design skills and getting you ready for industry. And just, it was really awesome. There was one geotechnical engineering professor, Christine Human, who was just the best and so supportive. Once I told her that I was interested in geotech, she worked with me to get me in some of the graduate classes when I was doing my undergrad. She helped me get an internship with one of her old firms and was just a great sounding board for when I was looking at grad schools. And even though I didn't stay at UB because I really wanted to go somewhere a little bit warmer after 4 years in Buffalo. It was just a really awesome experience for an undergrad.
That is fantastic. And so, Director's Cut, I always say, at its heart, is a show about food, sports, and music. And as soon as you bring up hockey, you're gone, right? Anybody who can have this conversation. So you mentioned that now you're a Kraken season ticket holder.
I am.
I want to ask so many questions about this. The first one that I'm going to have is the rivalry with Vancouver real? Do you feel it?
I do. I do. I feel like for whatever reason, the NHL keeps trying to make it a Vegas Seattle rivalry, but it just doesn't make as much sense because they keep doing the first games for that. But like Vancouver, you got your Canadian US rivalry stuck at the border. Every time it's for whatever sport it is, I feel like every time there's a Blue Jays game in Seattle, it's turns into a Blue Jays stadium instead of a Mariners stadium. But it's some good stuff, and it's nice that now that we've got our own team, you don't have to drive up to Vancouver every time you want to go see a hockey game.
Or you could have seen the Thunderbirds. You could have seen the Thunderbirds.
That is
right?
true, yeah. A little bit of a
Lot of history there.
a lot of
yeah.
history there, yeah.
But I have to ask about the arena too. So Climate Pledge Arena, engineering marvel of the Western Hemisphere, right? The first zero net.
Net
What's
zero
the phrase I'm
carbon
looking for?
emission.
Yes. I was
Sustainable.
going to use both, and then I'm glad you did that, not me.
Net zero, what's going on?
Do you feel it when you go into the building? I mean, do you when you go in there as a civil engineer, do you say to yourself, "Whoa, this is a pretty cool facility"?
Oh yeah, it's definitely really cool. I was bummed I wasn't at the company that got to do the excavation for this one because I even remember going to like I think it was an event for DFI or something, and it was up at the Space Needle, and you could look down from the Space Needle and just see the hole, but the roof was still standing because the roof is a historic landmark, so they couldn't change anything about that. So that's the whole excavation. It was just this hole underneath the roof, and it looks so cool. Um, and people I have season tickets with, one is my sister, and she always makes fun of me because they'll do like raise the roof first chance and stuff. And I was like, they can't raise the roof. It's a historic landmark. They had to lower the floor.
So wait a minute. I don't think, as big of a sports fan as I am, I don't think I knew that. So
Yeah,
the roof is the one from the old
from
basketball
World's
arena.
Fair. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is pretty cool.
Maybe not World's Fair, but we're just a historic landmark right next to the Space Needle, but it's the old roof. Yeah.
That is amazing. Wow, I learned so much by doing this show. 222 episodes, and I'm still learning new.
Yeah,
And
no,
we're
it was
gonna
a really
keep.
cool construction site.
That's awesome. We're gonna keep talking about Seattle because we mentioned early on. Well, yeah, that Seattle, we're not breaking any news here, is in the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest, so diverse from a geotechnical perspective. I mean, I guess you could really talk about it geologically, it's very diverse too. How exciting is that diversity of geotechnical issues to you to be somebody there working on this every day? And then do you have a couple favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I guess every geotech in the Pacific Northwest is always hoping that their site is going to be a glacial till site because, man, that really solves a lot of problems. But yeah, no, the geology is so crazy with all like the glacial geomorphology. It kind of gets really intense. We've got all these new seismic loadings that are happening with our basin effects and the subduction zone earthquakes, which I always feel like the seismic is both my favorite and least favorite because it's a really cool thing to get into, worried about our liquefaction or deep liquefaction, some lateral spread. So it's really interesting, really cool analyses and work, but also really annoying to try to find that solution sometimes.
We're going to wrap up with this one. I wanted to have a big question at the end, and I feel like you are in the perfect demographic for this one, Jackie, because when you graduated from undergrad, I think in 2014, so you've been out and about for 11 years now. I think that's about the point where, for me, I started seeing people get hired in right out of college, and they start asking questions that made me feel a little senior, things like that. But you do start to look back at the things that have happened, not just in your life, but in your career once you kind of hit that 10-year mark. So I wanted to ask you, what's the most exciting change to geotech that you've seen in the course of your career?
Um, I guess kind of a little bit of just how involved the geotechnical engineers are getting throughout the entire design process, and moving more towards these like probabilistic design scenarios and really getting our foot in the door for working in conjunction with the structural engineers and making those projects work out together in the best way that we can. And I guess also just how great the community is, that we're getting really supportive groups with both ASCE and GI, but also just like I work with some of the most awesome people, both at the city, both at when I was in consulting, such great groups of women and how supportive they are. And so it's great in general.
What if you could talk to newly graduated you, what would you say? What do you think is the most surprising thing about what you're doing now, I guess?
Ooh. Um, that I actually am inside when it rains now, would probably be my most surprising. I think I had some of the best luck as a new field engineer of getting to go to the bottom of a deep excavation when it was pouring rain or snowing, even though it never snows in Seattle. So that would be one thing. And then I guess just the vast amount of projects that you're going to get to work on, and that most of it's all the same equations that you learn at the very beginning of your education in geotech. And it's all just problem solving and working with different folks to come to a solution. And it's a surprise every day.
That is fantastic. And that is a great way to close with some big picture look back. Nostalgia, director's cut. That's our number one thing, I think, other than food, sports, and music. Yeah, we traffic in nostalgia too. Jackie, you made it through all 10 questions. You made it through the follow-ups to you. I say congratulations, even though, yes, everybody makes it through. Still an achievement. For our viewers, you also made it through. And if you liked what you saw, and I always say you're here at the end, so you probably did, remember to click like, subscribe, and get notifications. And yes, we will lovingly notify you every time we post something new to the YouTube channel. Jackie, thank you for doing this. I hope it was a good time.
Yeah, I know this was really great. Thanks for having me. I'll have to listen to more.
Much luck and congratulations for your year as chapter president. It's a big job, but I feel like you're up to it.
Thanks.
And for everybody out there, yes, we are hurtling towards summertime. It's kind of already here. We have just a few more episodes of Director's Cut before our summer break, so you want to keep tuning in for those and maybe watch some of the classics on our YouTube channel as well. And we will see you with another brand new episode of Director's Cut next week. So then tell me, why did you organize the Britney trip to begin with? Because this was on the way back from Geo-Congress in Phoenix, right?
Yeah. So we had a bunch of the grad students at UC Davis, so the GGSS group, had been picked to give presentations that year. And so we were trying to figure out the best way to pay for it. If it was flights or driving. And
it's always driving.
It is always driving, but it was a long drive. But we decided there was like enough money to drive there. So we rented like 2 giant vans for like our little basketball teams. And we're trying to figure it out, how much we should drive, we should take breaks. And I forget who it was. Maybe it was like Trevor, Carrie, or Diane. One of us was like, oh, like Vegas is kind of on the way. Like we could stop in Vegas. And I was like, well, Britney has a residency in Vegas. So I've always wanted to see Britney because I was like, I finally have some money. Like we could really make it work. So we checked to see what dates were available and we could get cheap tickets. And we're like, oh, well, like if we just drive through straight shot, like that won't work. There's no show that night. And then we're like, but what if we could convince people we needed to go to the Hoover Dam?
ASCE landmark.
Right. And so I think we talked to Ross Boulanger and he's like, oh yeah, like I know someone, like we'll get you set up with a tour. Like it can be special. It's not the normal one. Like I'll make a call. So he like makes the call and we're like, oh, perfect. Well, that means we have to stay the night here and go to the Hoover Dam. It's very educational. And then like we'll stay the night and then we'll drive a little bit and then we'll go back to Davis. And so like that was the plan. We had told everyone this is the plan. People are deciding if they want to spend their own money to fly or should be in this lovely Valentine's van weekend to Geo-Congress and back.
Oh, that's right. It was Valentine's Day.
We called each other our Valentines, so it was pretty great.
Oh, I like that.
Very cute. And so everything has been set up, and then we weren't sure if it was just going to be like a group of us that knew we wanted to go. And I was like, well, we should invite everyone to Britney. And I was just tried to be as like professional as I could, sending out to our entire like 20 students or something to be like, we're buying tickets to go see Britney Spears as a bonding activity. Please let me know if you would like to join. And we did get a couple surprises that I didn't think would be a Britney fan. And then the
But
rest of
not
the
Ross. Ross flew home.
Oh no, they weren't taking the vans. They had flown business class, I assume, at least back and forth. The vans were just for the grad students.
So did you actually get cheap tickets or cheapish? Like I have no idea. I don't understand like the whole residency thing is out of my wheelhouse. Like I just assumed it was like $400 the way it was if they were
No,
in a stadium tour or whatever.
they paid us to do research in grad school, but not enough to spend $400 on tickets. So they must have been reasonably priced because I want to say there was probably like 7 or 8 of us who went to the show, and then another group of people just decided to have like their own night out in Vegas, and we had stayed probably like at a town that was like 45 minutes away or anything, and
Oh wow.
we were leaving pretty early to start the drive back to California, and we're like, well, like everyone better make it back. And I think probably the most shocking thing was when we were like leaving bright and early in the morning, everyone loaded into the van and we hadn't lost anybody.
That is, oh, I like that. That's a good
Right.
tale. And the Britney show was good.
It was good. And looking back, I'm like, oh God, maybe we shouldn't have supported the residency, but it was a great time and it was silly and fun
Mm.
and a good grad school memory.
But you have to like, part of being an adult is being practical. Because I always do this too. Like I'm a label reader on clothes and everything. And I mean, I lived through the 90s. I went to a lot of Tibetan protests and stuff. I still wear Levi's. Like just
There's
practically like
you can be aware and use it to make your decisions. And maybe I would make a different decision now, but it was worth it.
oh,
Got to
that's
live
really
out
good.
our like middle school dreams, dance into some Britney Spears, and I definitely, when I was graduating, I was like, that's the most important thing I've done was get GGSS to Britney, like research, grades, whatever. No, it was Britney.
So